Okay, this is exercise set 1.3. We'll do some of the the odd numbered problems. The even numbered ones are homework. So you can see the instructions. Each contains an argument, so we need to identify the conclusion and the premises. Okay, and ignore whether it's good or bad. Just try to figure out the parts. So the premises of an argument are supposed to provide support for the conclusion. The conclusion is what you're supposed to be persuaded of. So you're supposed to accept the conclusion because the premises give you reason to do that. Often there are indicator words. These are in the textbook for premises and conclusion. We'll talk about them if we see them. Okay, so look at number 3. You really ought to watch the TV show The Wire. It's a show set in Baltimore, and you love everything about Baltimore. So the question is, what is the conclusion and which are the premises, right? Well, again, the conclusion is what you're trying to be persuaded of. So we're not trying to be persuaded it's a show set in Baltimore, and presumably we're not trying to be persuaded that we love everything about Baltimore, right? Those two things are supposed to give us a reason to accept the first one, namely that you really ought to watch the TV show The Wire. So the conclusion then is you ought to watch The Wire. All right, and in English, often the conclusion of an argument will come first. Sometimes it'll come last, sometimes it'll come first, sometimes it'll come in the middle. All right, so you can't just go by where is the sentence. You have to think about this relation of support. Which sentences support which sentences? Okay, so the premises then, there's 2. It's a show set in Baltimore is 1, and 2 is you love everything about Baltimore. Okay, down to number 5. Scientists often have different opinions about how the world works, so we can conclude there is no objective truth about how the world works. All right, now this word so is, as the textbook points out, a conclusion indicator word. All right, so it indicates that what comes after it is the conclusion. So the conclusion here is we can conclude, which also gives the game away, that there is no objective truth about how the world works, right? But again, even if there was no so and there was no we can conclude, you can see this first thing, this claim that scientists often have different opinions about how the world works, is supposed to give us reason to believe the second claim, that there's no objective truth about how the world works. Right? So again, that's the key to distinguishing premises and conclusion. What gives us reason to believe what? All right, number 7. It's going to be a really nice day tomorrow. The sky is very red, and this is a sign of nice weather ahead. So number 7, we don't really have any indicator words. So again, we have to think about what gives us reason for believing what. If somebody tells you it's going to be a really nice day tomorrow, does that give you a reason to believe the sky is very red? No, right? I mean, there's no connection. This doesn't give us support for this, right? Same if somebody told you it's going to be a really nice day tomorrow, that doesn't give you a reason to believe this, right? So again, it doesn't look like the first sentence is giving support to the other stuff. In fact, it goes the other way, right? It looks like these two things, the sky is red and this is a sign of a nice weather ahead, that gives us reason to believe the first sentence. So again, the conclusion is it's going to be a really nice day tomorrow. And the sky is very red is one premise, and this, meaning a red sky, is a sign of nice weather ahead. So both of those premises give us reason then to believe or to accept the conclusion. Number 9, Ottawa must be the capital city of Canada. It's not Montreal and it's not Toronto, right? So again, which of those sentences gives you reason to believe the others, right? Is it go this way? If somebody told you that Ottawa must be the capital city of Canada, does that give you reason to believe it's not Montreal and it's not Toronto? Or does it go the other way? If the capital is not Montreal and it's not Toronto, does that give you reason to believe that Ottawa is the capital city? Right? Well, it could, in some ways, it could go both ways. But this word "must" here is a bit of a tip-off, right? Ottawa must be the capital city of Canada, right? That implies a conclusion, and it implies that what comes after is the reason for the conclusion. So the conclusion here is Ottawa must be the capital city of Canada, and the premises are the capital city of Canada is not Montreal, and the capital city of Canada is not Toronto. All right, number 11. Astronomers say that, looks like a typo, say that there are now only 8 planets in the solar system. Until recently, they said there were 9 planets in the solar system. Clearly, then, astronomers have no idea how to count. So again, what gives us reason to believe what? Right? It looks like the fact that astronomers used to think there were 9, but now think that there were 8, is leading to the conclusion. And again, this clearly then language is an indicator, it's a conclusion, that astronomers have no idea how to count. Okay, so astronomers have no idea how to count. Okay, so the first premise is they now say there are only 8 planets. Second premise, until recently they said there were 9 planets. Okay, number 13. Some people say a tomato is a fruit, but nobody puts tomatoes in a fruit salad. This entails that a tomato is not a fruit. All right. So this word entails is a bit of a conclusion indicator. Right? When you say something is entailed, you mean that the other things give us reason to believe it, right? So again, it looks like the conclusion here is tomato is not a fruit, and the premises, nobody puts tomatoes in a fruit salad. Now this first thing here, some people say a tomato is a fruit, doesn't really seem like it's part of the argument, right? It's what's being reacted to, but it's not really a premise in the sense it doesn't give us a reason to believe the conclusion. So really this argument only has one premise, that nobody puts tomatoes in a fruit salad, therefore a tomato is not a fruit. And notice there's a missing or an implicit premise there that says if something is a fruit, then people put it in a fruit salad, right? And you'll see that quite a bit where arguments have implicit premises that aren't made explicit because it seems like they're obvious or something like that. Okay, 15. The area of a circle is pi r squared. The volume of a sphere is 4/3 pi r cubed. The volume of a cylinder is pi r squared h, etc. All of which goes to show that pi is a very important number in geometry. Right? So again, that all of which goes to show is definitely a conclusion indicator. And so the conclusion here, pi is a very important number in geometry, and all these claims are supposed to give you reason to believe that, right? So there's 4 different claims about geometric figures and how pi enters into the volume or area, right? So all those are premises, and they give us reasons to believe the conclusion that pi is a very important number in geometry. Notice the indicator is not part of the conclusion, right? That's, again, serving the purpose of indicating that what comes after it is the conclusion. Okay, Q2. Now here you're supposed to determine if there is an argument present, all right? And if you think there is, then identify the conclusion and the premises. All right, so number 1, in my opinion, the Boston Red Sox are the best team in baseball. Remember, it's important that an argument has at least 2 parts, right? Premises, or at least one premise, which gives reasons for the conclusion. And in this case, number one, there's no reasons given, right? It just says in my opinion, right? So this one is not an argument, because an argument has to have at least two parts to it: premises and a conclusion, reasons. There's no reasons there. Number three, the Lakers are going to win on Sunday. They're playing at home and have a perfect home record this season so far. Now there are reasons given, and the reasons given are supposed to make us believe this, which is the conclusion, right? The fact that Lakers are playing at home and they have a perfect record at home so far gives us reason to believe that they're going to win on Sunday. So 3 is an argument, and the first sentence is the conclusion. Number 5, Apple products are the best, said Adam. No, you're wrong, said Beatrice. Microsoft products are the best. Now, this is an argument in a certain sense of the word argument, right? Disagreement. But it's not an argument in the sense we're interested in, because there are no reasons given for conclusions. There are 2 conclusions here, right? Adam says Apple are best. Beatrice says Microsoft are best. But again, there are no reasons given for either of those conclusions. So that's not an argument. 7, most people think the earth is getting warmer, but some people disagree. This is not an argument because there's no structure such that there's a conclusion that you're trying to be persuaded of with reasons, right? This is just 2 distinct claims. This says one thing about what some people think. This says another thing about what some people think. But neither of them gives you reason to believe the other. And so there's no relationship there of support. So it's not an argument. Number 9, those who cannot remember the past are doomed to repeat it. Santayana, again, arguments have to have at least 2 parts: premises and conclusion. And here, there's not really 2 parts. There's not 2 things being said. There's just one, right? This is all basically one sentence. And so to have an argument, you need to have a conclusion and support, or premises. 11, lower taxes mean that I get to keep more of my paycheck, and the government are promising that lower taxes are on the way. Thus, I will shortly be keeping more of my paycheck. Thus is a conclusion indicator word. And indeed, this is the conclusion, because these 2 things give us reason to believe that thing, right? If lower taxes mean keep more and government is promising lower taxes, then that gives us reason to believe we'll soon be keeping more of the paycheck. 13, it's always wrong to tell a lie. James just lied to Maria about how much money he has in his wallet. Hence, James did something wrong. Again, hence is a conclusion indicator word. And again, this indeed is the conclusion. And again, even if you didn't have the word hence, you could still see that the first 2 sentences give you reason to believe the third one, right? If it's wrong to tell a lie, and if James told a lie, that gives us reason to believe that James did something wrong. And finally, number 15, young people today are so rude. Back in my day, kids had respect for their parents, and they weren't walking around with their heads stuck in a phone. Again, we might call that an argument in a certain sense of the word, but not in the philosophical sense of the word. There's no conclusion that you're trying to be persuaded of, and there's no reasons or premises backing up that conclusion. Although, I don't know, maybe you could say the first sentence there is a conclusion. Let's see, young people today are so rude. Does the fact that kids had respect for their parents back in my day, see, this doesn't really give support to that. It doesn't give you reason to believe it. Again, it's just like 2 separate claims. But I guess you could sort of, maybe formulate an argument from this, right? Like if you say, young people today are rude, they don't have respect for their parents, and they weren't walking around with and they walk around with their head stuck in a phone, and those things are rude, right? Then together those would give you some reason to believe that young people today are so rude. But as it's written, I think it's not an argument.